Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
We've got Yoon from the Chief Investment Officer of New York Life, who's seen the emergence of the emerging markets back in the days. He drew parallels with where Africa is today and where Africa could be 10 to 20 years. Jay, great to get your views on what you've heard. Over to you.
Yeah, so I think my theme was going to be pretty similar to what Maher mentioned, which is I guess I spoke about 3 years ago, and right, I was making an argument for Africa in terms of going after or approaching the problem of trying to recruit foreign assets or attracting foreign assets from perspective of you have to convince the benchmark providers to obviously include Africa, which it is, but also somehow you need to convince the pensions and the sovereign wealth to figure out how they can have a segment of their strategic benchmark to include Africa. So going after that population of asset owners probably will be more fruitful than one-off private equity. That I fully agree. And the other thing that I've noticed since COVID is, from my own or our own firm's investment view, is we're a little bit shying away from emerging markets over the next 6 to 12 months. At some point, I suppose you'll get attractive, but at this point in time, there's an element in the U.S., not just by our firm, to bring assets home. For that matter, we are finding, for that matter, Europe or Japan a little less attractive than U.S., as U.S. is much more tech and healthcare biased, and we find that more attractive in the near term. So you need to be cognizant that investment assets might actually dislike emerging markets for the near future. So it's hard to fight that near-term trend, but over the next 2 to 3 years or longer, for that matter, what is the advantage of Africa over other countries? And I'm not an expert in Africa at all, but what I was thinking is to compete with, I don't know, population of India, for example, on pharmaceutical manufacturing probably is not a winning battle. So I was thinking, what's the advantage more longer term Africa has over other continents? And I think the simplest one, I think Mara again already mentioned, agriculture, right? It pops in my mind that in the long run, obviously commodity as well, are top of mind. So how do you then take a longer term approach and build on a natural advantage Africa as a continent has over other continents? And the theme that I think is starting to, the US was very late to get on board with ESG, but with COVID and with destruction of commodity or energy specifically, I was pleasantly surprised how US is embraced. He was the last man standing to kind of fight it, meaning they talk about it, but if you see the dollar flow into ESG, it was very little. It was a lot of wealthy, high net worth individuals thematically allocating money because they believe in it. But now it's become much more of a trend that I think is sustainable in the US to embrace ESG. So I think, so my question is like, what's the advantage of Africa over the next 2 to 5 years? Can you package it with an ESG theme? Because I think, as someone else mentioned, there's a hesitation to invest in Africa. And even for me, when I was actually liking frontier market, obviously I do it through funds. So I'm not actually particularly having specific views about companies. So I think embracing ESG would be the last comment I would make. Is very important to convince people to get comfortable.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.